and a very warm welcome to more live coverage of the Audi R8 LMS Cup. We are back once again here at the Korea International Circuit. Alongside me, Sean Henshelwood. And Sean, yesterday's race with Alex Young winning and the disappointment of the qualifying performance from Alessio Picariello, the championship leader, we thought it was a big chance for the rest of the field to make up some of that gap. But in fact, he's extended his lead at the top of the championship table.
Certainly that was bad news for his rivals because, as you say, he qualified on the fourth row. There was every chance they would be able to breach that gap that he had. It was 31 points yesterday. It's gone beyond that now. And it was consistency. This is how you play out a championship. But additionally, you talk about Alex Young, I mean, the reigning champion, three-time champion, and he came into this round after a tough run at Suzuka, and he was able to eke out a victory, and that was really a good run for him. But it was all about experience yesterday because of the weather conditions. It mixed up the grid in qualifying, caught a number of drivers out, but ultimately it was the reigning champion that came through, and that was a good result for him.
That's right. Well, 35 points now is the gap. The next 5 drivers in the standings are separated by just 13 points. In order, quickly, they are Mitch Gilbert, who starts from the front row of the grid for today. Then Alex Young, making up ground after yesterday's win. Frankie Chung, Sean Thong and Martin Rump. Now, Martin Rump started from pole position yesterday and pretty disappointing performance. How can he bounce back today?
Well, I mean, the good thing is it's a clean slate. For this weekend, for the first time, we have 2 separate qualifying sessions on 2 separate days. In the past, it was one qualifying session that set the grid for both races, effectively, because it was fastest race lap from race 1 that set the grid for race 2. This time round, whole new ball game, different day, the ability to regroup and start again. And he probably didn't get the most out of the car out of qualifying, but keep a close eye on the Champion Racing Team driver because he's a very, very astute driver. Of course, 4-time winner last year, and he is certainly right up there with Alessio Picariello based on pure raw speed. So keep a good eye on the number 18 Champion car.
Now, another thing to note is of course, that today is a standing start. Yesterday we had a rolling start. And what that might mean is that the weight ballast, the penalty that's awarded for the top 3 drivers from yesterday's race, could perhaps have more effect off the starting line. From the front row, we have Mitch Gilbert with 35 kilograms in his car from finishing second yesterday. Does that give an advantage to Frankie Chung, starting from position number 2? Who's the favourite to get to the first turn in the lead?
Well, probably the person that gets away from the lights and jumps off the start the quickest without jumping the start. We've seen some classic jump starts in the past. But certainly an additional amount of weight in any car is going to retard your ability to get off the line quickly. You've got to move that extra mass, and that will work against those guys. So Mitch Gilbert for the first pole, first time he has got that this year. But for Frankie Chung, we saw a brilliant start from him from race 2 at Suzuka. Last time out, he went and transferred that into his first victory in more than a year. So keep a close eye on the 31 car because I think Frankie Chung could be one of the ones to watch in this race.
Well, we can take a look at some of the highlights from Suzuki. You mentioned Frankie Chung with that fantastic win in round 4. Let's take a look at both those races from Japan last time out. This was race 3, Sean.
And yes, this certainly was an interesting run here yesterday for round 5 of the championship. And you see David Chen on the green car on the right of screen. The AM Plus driver had got himself on the front row. So mixed up was qualifying. But at the front of the field, Martin Rump got the jump. The one to watch there was the number 1 car, the Audi R8 LMS Cup car of Alex Young. And then down to turn 3, it got a little bit interesting. You see Stefan Riquelme went to the outside of the circuit, very slippery. He was able to run wide. So too Anthony Liu. And he was going to be able to work his way forward. But then it was slippery again, caught out David Chen. And he had a little bit more work to do. The local favourite, KOU, had worked his way strongly forward. Then he came under fire from the man who won round 4, and that was Frankie Chung.
And Frankie really getting a double penalty because he loses track position here, and then he was hit with a 30-second penalty afterwards. And we discussed this before. Drivers generally not happy when they get penalised, and Frankie no exception.
Well, that was just a tough call, and there was a little bit more penalising going on post-race too. Of course, this move, Andrew Kim, the other South Korean driver, of course, making contact with Jeffrey Lee, but up front, trouble-free, the man who's won more races than anybody in the Audi R8 LMS Cup. Second win for the year for him, and that, of course, was the number 1 of Malaysia's Alex Young. A 1-2 for Malaysia with Mitch Gilbert across the line second, and a great drive from 12th position on the grid for Sean Thong to finish 3rd. Very happy former F1 driver, and another trophy for the cabinet back at home. Nice job, and he enjoyed that celebration too. Good result too for David Chen, Anthony Liu and Andrew Kim alongside.
Well, David Chen winning the AM Plus class yesterday, starts from position number 7 today. Another good performance. Yesterday he started from 2nd position. We had a chat with him earlier today and he was saying that it was good for him to get that experience of seeing what happens at the front, even though he lost several places off the start, but he'll be looking for a better start today.
Well, he's been doing a great job, the Chinese driver. He's really done a very good job. Sophie's down on the grid. She's with the series manager of the Audi R8 LMS Cup, and that is Mark Turner.
Mark, welcome to the show. And 2017 season we have Push to Pass is back, and at the same time I know recently you've made some changes in the number of times that a driver can use in a race. So how has that changed things?
Well, in Suzuka we had quite a lot of push to pass, which meant that the drivers could really use it to overtake and to defend. We've really reduced the number for Korea, and this means that the drivers really have to think about how many times they're going to use it, and it will make it much more strategic for them. Will make them very much more precious.
Thank you so much, Mark, for your time. At the same time, we hope these modifications can add more interest in the race today, and now it's our time to cross back to the panel.
Thank you, Sophie. A very valid point we need to make is about push to pass, and what it is effectively is 50 horsepower more that the drivers have at their disposal by pushing a button. It gives it 10 seconds of an additional 50 horsepower, but they only have a certain number of passes they can use. If you're in the pro class, that's the guys at the front of the field predominantly, you have 5 opportunities for push to pass in this race. In the AM Plus category, David Chen, Anthony Liu, you have 10 opportunities to use it. And for the AM driver, Burrit Birenbakti, has 15 opportunities to use that additional 50 horsepower. The idea is to make the result mix up. It's good if you want to get off the line quickly, you can use it then, and you'll see a number behind the door of the car, and it has a number for the lead drivers between 1 and 5. That's how many push to pass they still have left. But when it's flashing, and you'll see it on the footage during the race, that means they've hit the button, they're using push to pass, and that makes it interesting for us to watch.
It's certainly great for us as viewers, but the drivers are also trying to strain out through using their rear view mirrors and out the front to see how many their competitors still have left. Of course, we talked about this before, there's no point having any left in reserve. You don't want to take any back to the garage, but do you use them all at the start in the opening few laps to try to get that break ahead, or do you try and hold some in reserve in case you need them later on?
Well, it is a good strategy play, but remember, it's only 5 times you can use it again. So you make the choice, do you use it maybe if you've qualified back a little way? You can use it to jump forward off the start. Or do you use it if you're defending position? Somebody tries to pass you, certainly under brakes or in a straight line, certainly more so in a straight line than under brakes. You can move forward. Under brakes, maybe they'll lose the advantage, but coming out of a corner, you can have that punch. You've got 10 seconds. There's no sense doing it coming out of a slow corner before you jump back onto the brakes for a corner. So it is a strategic thing. It does make it interesting, and the drivers have all admitted that they're looking at that flashing number on the side of their rivals' cars to know when they're using it, and then they're counting in their minds how many times have they used that, so they can perhaps take advantage. It's a very interesting additional feature of the Audi R8 LMS Cup this year.
That's right, and taken in conjunction with the penalty ballast. Just to recap, we've got Mitch Gilbert from the front row in pole position with 35 kilos. Sean Thong will start with 20 kilos. He starts from position number 4. And then Alex Young qualified in 6th position for today's race. But he will have 50 kilos in the car, and it's pretty hard to win with that much weight. It has been done, but he'll be looking to, well, be very good if he can get into the podium positions.
Well, let's go and see what it's like, because Mitch Gilbert is down there on the grid, and Sophie may well be able to pose that very question to the young Malaysian driver on the front row of the grid.
Mitch, Korea seems to be a lucky place for you. A podium finish yesterday and going to start it from pole position today, but with extra 35 kg in your car, how are you going to lead the race today?
I mean, I'm just going to do the best start I can, the best first lap, and then just try and do my race. I know that Frankie and Alessio without the weight are going to be really quick, I think especially Alessio. So I'm just going to do my best for the first 5 laps, and then hopefully I'm away enough. I think it's going to be pretty tough.
Thank you so much, and with the water tube and the mini fan, good luck for you. And now it's our time, back to your guys.
Well, it's interesting to see Mitch use the fan there. It is significantly hotter today. The sun was out when we were just out, just before we went on air, Sean, and yesterday it was humid as it is today, but it was cloudy and some rain on and off as well. So pretty different conditions. How's that going to affect today's race?
Well, we've seen conditions like this, to be fair, across the last couple of seasons. I think most of the regulars here in Asia are used to that now. We do see some of the Europeans come and they get the odd shock at just how hot it is in the car. It can be up to 60 degrees. Can you imagine just how hot that is?
Yeah.
And that does drain a lot of power from the drivers, but it's a relatively short race and they know how to cope with it. So it's going to be very, very interesting for them. But certainly something they have to contend with.
Good stuff. Well, we can join now Alessio Picariello, the championship leader, who is well out in front, but he starts from position number 4 and he's with Sophie now.
Alessio, especially after yesterday's race and today starting from the 3rd place, what is your strategy of sharing with us?
First take points, but obviously I have no weight, so I want to win. It's been a difficult weekend, not pace-wise, but not everything was with us this weekend, so I want to change that and hopefully going on the top step.
Good luck for you, Alessio. Now it's our time. Cross back to the panel.
Alessio starting, I should have said, from position number 3, and he will certainly be a threat for the race win here.
I think he will be. He's shown in the past the weight doesn't really worry him that much, but it will be getting off the line. It'll all about turn 1, and to do it safely and to try and take advantage of his ability and get through as far as he can. But of course he's got drivers with a lot of experience behind him. Talking to Martin Rump just yesterday, he said, I don't believe Alessio's any more special than anybody else in this field, except he's just been able to convert his good luck in qualifying into results. The rest of us have had the odd hiccup along the way. So if he is put behind the 8 ball, we may be able to take advantage of that. But we're all gunning for him and we're all capable of matching him on the day. So it'll be very interesting to see how this one plays out.
Well, the race will be getting underway in just about 4 minutes' time or so. Just let's take a look through the rest of the field. From the top, Mitch Gilbert, Frankie Chung, Alessio Picariello. Looking down the rest of the grid, the 2 local favourites, KOU and Andrew Kim. How can they do today?
Well, they should do fairly well. We've seen KOU on the podium here in the Cup in past seasons, a 2nd and a 3rd. And he was very fast yesterday, but the conditions very, very tricky. Track knowledge doesn't mean as much as the ability to handle the car in conditions like that. And we really don't see it damp, not raining, not dry, all that often. It's either one or the other. And that's something they've had to contend with. And unfortunately, I think for Andrew Kim, we saw him a couple of years ago, very fast addition to the field as an amateur driver. In fact, we were only talking yesterday that some people questioned whether he shouldn't be a pro, he was so fast. But he hasn't been driving this car for a while. So to jump back into sub for Marchie Lee, who's absent this weekend, that's a big ask to just be right on it against a field that's of this quality.
Well, KO certainly has a large local fan base, always has a lot of media commitments when we go to the Korea International Circuit. He's a big star here and always seems to be in the thick of the action. Doesn't matter if he's at the front, middle or back of the field, he's always trying a move on someone.
Well, we heard the cheers in the lounge here with the fans yesterday as he defended very, very vigorously against Frankie Chung and came out on top of that one. There was a lot of applause here and a lot of laughter. So that is one of the hallmarks of KOU, and that's what we expect.
So KO will be starting from position number 10 on the grid. David Chen will be leading the AM class from position number 7, and we mentioned him before. But, you know, he's come in. How far can we expect him to perhaps climb?
Well, the Tianxia racing driver has been very, very impressive. The Chinese driver has come in at Suzuka and he made his debut, 21 years of age, but a very good student of the sport, but he's learning. So he said after Suzuka that what he did was back off a little bit in a couple of situations to make sure that he wasn't too heavily involved.
Well, I think we can now pass down to KOU, who's on the grid down with Sophie. Let's hear from him now.
KOU, you're the most popular driver here in Korea, especially competing in the home ground. You have lots of missions on your shoulder. What is your target today?
My target is podium. My position is 10. Really, it's push hard, and maybe I think it's 3 position. I won.
Good luck for you. Now back to the panel.
KO is certainly one of the biggest characters on the grid. He's always going for a laugh, helps us with some of the little features that we like to do. It'd be great to see him. I remember a couple of years ago when he got onto the podium and he was in tears with his team boss, and it was very, very emotional, not just him, but for the fans here as well.
Well, Hongshik's walking past here in the background. He was the one that was in tears the most, I think, and he remembers that moment quite fondly when we bring it up. But yeah, he very, very popular local driver, and we're talking, just going back to David Chen. He has done a great job, but he has learnt along the way, and today he admitted he's going to be a little bit more aggressive. He got himself off the start from the front row yesterday, dropped it back through the field a little bit, but he said, in that I learnt what the guys at the front of the field were like. And he said, that was a big learning experience for me. And each time he has improved and gone another step further forward. So keep an eye on the Tianjia racing car as it runs through this race, because I think he might be set for another move further up the field.
Well, Sean, they'll be getting into their formation lap in just a moment and then coming back for the standing start. Let's just take a look at the circuit here, the Korean International Circuit, 5.6 kilometers, and we saw some pretty exciting moments yesterday. Where were some of those highlights taking place on this track?
Well, it seems the turns 4, 5, 6 are one of the areas where we've seen a lot of drama. Of course, that was that famous incident last year between Alex Jung and Alessio Picariello. So turns 1 and 2, the long run down to turn 3. So there's an opportunity to make a passing move at turn 3 and turn 4. And if you're careful, maybe turn 10, but you need to make a decisive move if you do that. It's a long circuit, 5.615 kilometres. That run between turn 2 and 3 is one of the longest in Asian motorsport. And of course, this was a Formula 1 designed circuit. Opened in October 2010, 2010, 11, 12 and 13. It hosted the Korean Formula 1 Grand Prix. So a popular circuit, a popular addition to the field. So,
well, the grid just clearing now. As you can see, they'll be doing one lap, then coming back for just a few moments, checking everyone's in place, and then we will be underway. So, Sean, I'm going to put you on the spot. Mitch Gilbert starts from pole position. He does have that 35 kilograms. Who is going to take the lead into this first corner? Will it be Mitch, or will it be perhaps Frankie, or someone from further back?
Well, interestingly, 1, 2, 3 for the Absolute Racing team. So that's telling they are teammates. So they may have already predetermined what they're going to do, but they're also racing drivers. It'll be very interesting to see where this ends up. So it's going to be a good run into turn 1. And I don't know, I think Frankie showed last time out at Suzuka that he can get away from the field. He's doing a very good job, so look to him.
Well, just to expand on that a little bit, Sean, you talked about their teammates. It used to be in the Cup that everyone in the Cup could see everyone else's data. What we're seeing now is that only people in the same service team can compare data. This is the statistical data, and they can look where people are quick, ins and outs and corners and braking points and so on. So that has really given the advantage to these three at the top of the field, Mitch Gilbert, Frankie Chung and Alessio Picariello. Time and again we've seen this, so that is definitely helping these results here.
There's no question. In fact, you talk to Mitch Gilbert and he credits a lot of his advancement up the order with what data he can gain from Alessio Picariello. Now, Mitch Gilbert's a very talented driver. The advantage he's taking is also of the fact that Alessio had a full season in the Cup last year. Frankie Chung's had a lot of experience in the past. They're overlaying all that data, and all three of them are getting faster and faster at each round. That is a valuable opportunity. So teamwork certainly does play a part in all of this.
Well, just run through the starting grid for everyone here. Mitch Gilbert, then Frankie Chung on the front row, Alessio Picariello, Sean Thong on the second row, then come Martin Rump and Alex Jung, who of course won yesterday's race. Then David Chen and Anthony Leoff in the AM Plus class start on the fourth row. Stefan Rakelmi, KOU, Andrew Kim, Jeffrey Lee and Burrit Burrenbakti.
It's going to be a very, very interesting race, and it'll all open up, and we've seen it in the past. Quite often the driver that gets away first and into turn 1 in the lead can carry that through to the end of the race. So that's where it's going to be. That's the focus, is off the start of this race.
And historically also in the Cup, we've seen sometimes a more conservative opening race of the weekend, and then drivers leaving it all out there on the track on the second race. We saw a pretty exciting race yesterday, but perhaps even more fireworks today.
Well, I don't know. The weather played a big part of that yesterday.
Yep.
You've got to remember the outfield was very, very slippery, and that caught a couple of them wrong-footed. That's where experience played a part. We've got a dry track today. As you say, it's quite warm. The sun's been out for some time now. So this circuit will be ready to go. You should see some impressive lap times too. What will push to pass play in this? I think from the past we have also seen that off the start, you'll see those flashing numbers on the side of the car as the drivers use it feverishly off the line to get down to turn 1. But turn 1 after the start here at Korea International comes up very, very quickly.
So just a few moments until they will form up for the final time. Then the lights will go on and then off, and it will be race time here at the Korea International Circuit.
Two of the cars involved in an incident yesterday we were just looking at. There they are again. That is, of course, Andrew Kim in this car, the Audi Hong Kong entry, normally reserved for Marchie Lee, and Jeffrey Lee, who has made more starts in the Audi R8 LMS Cup than anybody else in this field. I think he's only missed one race in the 5.5 seasons we've had already to date. But the pole man, first time this year, he's lost pole by 2/100ths of a second twice this year. He's made pole position for the first time by 4/100ths of a second earlier today. Alongside him right of screen, the 31 car, the FAW VW car of Frankie Chung. Watch the lights. Once the lights are out, it will be away. So left of screen, Mitch Gilbert, teammate on the right. Frankie Chung behind Mitch Gilbert, points leader, Alessio Piccarello getting ready for a start. And we have a green flag. Watch the lights. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and when they're out, we're away. We are away here in Korea International Circuit for the 6th round of the Audi R8 LMS Cup, and a big move across by Mitch Gilbert, but it looks like Frankie Chung's taken the inside. Alessio's going to try and dip in under, but he hasn't done it. 4th place just under his rear wing with Sean Thong. There is KOU coming through. A little bit wide onto the grass there for Mitch Gilbert. He needs to be avoiding those sorts of things. Burt Birambaki towards the rear of the field, but the front is dominated at the moment by Frankie Chung. It looks like Alessio is going to try and go around the outside on the run down to turn 3. Push to pass has come well and truly into play. 3 wide for the absolute team. Sean Thong right of screen. There's the lead to Alessio Piccarello. So the points leader already at the front of this field. Now where is Alex Jung? A little bit further back, very wide there. That looks like Martin Rump going off on the exit of turn 3. The all-green car and mid-pack is David Chen.
Well, Sean Thong's actually crept up into 3rd position, so Mitch Gilbert, the big loser from the start of this race, going down from 1st into 4th position, but a very exciting start here, Sean.
That was a great start for Frankie Chung, but he was unable to do much about Alessio. I'd say Alessio's used most of his push to pass off that run out of turn 2, the long run down to turn 3, to move himself into position to take his teammate. But it could be that Frankie has some of those in reserve and has the opportunity perhaps to fire back at Alessio a little bit later in this race. On screen, that is David Chen doing a brilliant job for the Tianxia Racing Team. Behind him is Martin Rump, and then KOU followed by Stefan Riquelme in the green Castrol Racing Team entry.
That's right, David Chen in the green car up into 6th position. He started in 7th, a much, much better start than he had yesterday, and he said he was looking to learn from that experience. Well, he certainly has.
I have to say, one of the things that a lot of the drivers have said as we've been talking to them this weekend about Alessio Piccarello and any of his weak points, one of the strengths they point to is his ability to work with the Pirelli tyre. And a lot of that has to do with driving the tyre when they're cold. And they're cold certainly at the start of this race. And just look at the lead already that Alessio Piccarello has at the front of this field. So he really does take that advantage and put it to good use. Got straight past Frankie, and now he's starting to disappear off into the distance. So I'd hazard a guess he'd be more than a second up by the time he crosses the line in the MGT by Absolute Racing entry at the front of this field.
Yeah, that's right. Nearly 1.8 seconds after the first lap, Sean, and it's been very difficult for the rest of the field to catch Alessio once he gets his nose in front. So let's hope from their point of view that this is not going to be a possession. It's worth noting that the 2 cars at the front don't have any weight, so perhaps that was significant off the line. Mitch Gilbert with that extra 35 kgs
Look
dropping
at this,
back.
3 wide on the run out of turn 2. It looks like KOU got the jump on David Chen, and then Stefan Riquelme is trying to take advantage of that. Further back, you can see the 3 cars. This isn't going to work very well going 3 wide into turn 3. What's going to happen? KO's got the inside. And Riquelme, he ran wide here yesterday at the start. He's being pushed wide by KOU. And again, a little bit more. And there's more contact further back in the field. And now that's allowed Riquelme to try and come back at KOU. David Chen on the outside. He's just watched something unfold in front of him he doesn't want to be a part of. He'll drop in behind these guys. And that looks like Anthony Liu in the 37 car, nipping in under the tail there of David Chen. Still side by side. Riquelme's going to get another lesson here if he's not too careful. And that is Anthony Liu trying to work his way past the TSRT entry. And this is feverish racing further back in this field. It's exactly what we want to be seeing.
Well, dramatic moments just in the first 2 races, first 2 laps of this race here, Sean. But out in front, a pretty sizable gap already for championship leader Alessio Picariello. He'll be looking to extend that lead, but still fighting here in midfield with Riquelme and David Chen in the middle of that pack of 4.
We did surmise yesterday that Alessio Picariello was sitting fairly comfortably in 4th position. He did admit that on the final lap at turn 3, he did take a big dive under brakes on Sean Thong, but he was unable to make the position, very nearly put himself off the circuit, trying to pull himself up as Sean Thong turned into the apex. But he said, look, I did what I needed to do. As we're looking at Andrew Kim, is involved in that contact at turn 3, just back in the pack. So for the local driver, a frustrating start for his return to the Cup this season. But Alessio Picariello was, of course, suggesting that, well, 4th place might not be so bad. I did as much as I could. I started 8th on the grid. I got as many points as I could, but I'm not carrying any success ballast for race 1 here in South Korea. But for race 2, I can focus on the race win, and the plan's working out very, very nicely already. 2.8 seconds up at the front of this field.
Well, this is the battle for 7th, and you can see in 8th position, Stefan Riquelme was just using a push to pass the number 11 car with the flashing lights. Didn't actually help him on this occasion, but those 4 cars of KOU, Stefan Riquelme, David Chen and Anthony Leo, very, very close here. And here's Riquelme having a look around KOU. The fans in the lounge and in the stands will be hoping that their man can stay out in front and do so on this occasion.
Well, that's interesting too. I'm wondering just how many push to pass his rivals have around him, KOU, but you see the big orange 5 on the side of the Tianxia Racing entry of David Cheng, the 3rd car in this line. So he has spare push to pass to use. So what can we see? KO's got 1 left, Riquelme's got 2 left, David Chen had 5. And
but of course we have started with double the number of everyone else, so he still used a significant number, but he has more in reserve.
So too the man behind him, and again it's an additional 10 seconds of 50 more horsepower. So he wants to put that to good use and try and move forward. But at the moment, what's the rush? The thing that's going on in front of him could all end in tears, and we saw that KO at home doesn't like to be overtaken yesterday, and if you're going to make a move, you need to make it decisive, or you could end up in a little bit of trouble.
Well, this is a very interesting battle. Out in front, Alessio Picariello, about 3 seconds clear. Then there's another pack of 5 cars with Frankie Chung, Sean Thong, Mitch Gilbert, Alex Young and Martin Rump, all pretty close together. Then a bit of a gap to this pack of 4. So battles all over the track here, Sean.
Just having a look at the timing sheet just to see where Mitch Gilbert is. Now, there's the number 7 entry, the Audi Taiwan entry of Jeffrey Lee. Let's hope he hasn't made contact for a 2nd time with Andrew Kim. We saw Andrew Kim stopped on the circuit, so it looks like game over for the number 5 Audi Hong Kong entry. But interesting to see Mitch Gilbert down in 4th position, and he's a fair way back. Well, he's not too far back behind Sean Thong, but we expected to see the pole sitter run away at the front of this field, and he seems to be dropping back a little bit. The Audi Tita Racing entry, we saw that livery, of course, take victory in a number of championships when it was on the number 1 car of Alex Young in past seasons. Of course, Sean Thong from Hong Kong has taken that over now, and he did a great job. 3rd in the first race, 3rd in this race. So a good haul of points for the young driver from Hong Kong, who, of course, shares in the Blancpain GT Series Asia with Marchie Lee, and they are race winners in that championship. So too, Mitch Gilbert.
Well, Mitch Gilbert in 4th position there, trying to Sean Thong under pressure. Not quite close enough to make a move here, but he'll be looking to get back into the podium positions, having started from the front. But at the front, that man, Frankie Chung, is number 2. He is now 3.6 seconds behind Alessio Picariello. That's going to be pretty hard to make up unless there is an incident perhaps further out on the track and a safety car comes out. You just never know what happens.
Well, that's exactly right, and that's one of the discussions about push to pass, that you may have opened up a huge advantage, but if there's a safety car for any reason and you've used them to open up a 10-second advantage, and we've seen this in the past, the field closes up, you've got nothing in reserve. So yes, you don't want to go into pit lane with any push to pass left in the kit, but you also need to be mindful that anything could happen in the race, and you may need to call on it at some point just for that little bit extra.
Well, Frankie Chung, we've seen in the past, he has a poor race in the opening one of the weekend, and then he's come back well. That happened in Suzuka. It seems to be happening here as well.
Well, he's admitted it, that confidence has been a big thing, and learning the car. So whilst this is a Generation 2 Audi R8 LMS GT3, they spent a number of years, about 5 seasons, with the Audi R8 LMS GT3 Generation 1. So he said, I felt comfortable with that car. That was very much a modified road car. This is very much a dedicated GT3 race car in the way that it has been built by Audi. So he said it took me a little bit more time to get comfortable with the car. Some of the drivers have adapted a little bit more quickly. In fact, it's sentiment that had been echoed a little also by Alex Yoong, the reigning champion. But of course, he took the car to victory last year.
Well, just to recap the standings at the front of the field, Alessio Picariello now 4.3 seconds ahead of the field. We got some good times coming up from Frankie Chung, but Alessio still setting the pace. His has the fastest lap so far of 2:10.733. That's about 3/4 of a second faster than everyone else. But Frankie and Sean Thong, Mitch Gilbert, Alex Yoong, Martin Rump, all pretty close together there in positions 2 through 6.
A little bit surprised to see David Chen seems to have dropped back a little bit further in the field. So too Anthony Liu. That's part of the battle for the AM Plus classification. We saw Andrew Kim out. He was involved in that battle as well. And he will be taking no further part. So it is still David Chen, even though he's in position number 9 now, that is leading the AM Plus classification. But here was your pole sitter. Mitch Gilbert has been putting a lot of solid results together. In fact, 4 consecutive podium finishes last 4 times out. He's just outside the podium this time round, but he'll be looking to do what he can to work his way back. Now, here's a good battle. Martin Rump, 4-time winner last year, battling with 3-time winner and reigning champion Alex Yoong. Unfortunately for Martin Rump, we're now into the second half of the 2017 season, and he hasn't carded a single victory. It's been a tough start to the year for the young Estonian, but he'll be looking to make amends for that, and he's pushing Alex Yoong pretty hard.
And Sean, worth remembering that Alex has that extra passenger next to him, the 50 kilos in his passenger seat, so that massively gives the advantage to Martin here. How does that play into it as the tyres start to wear down as this race progresses?
Well, it's like anything. Additional weight is more to pull up under brakes. It's more to move under G-force on G-loadings in the corners. They can corner at 2+ Gs. So it's that weight doubled. So it's more wear on the tyres. So it is a significant addition to the field. It's how you balance that and how you use it. How you can offset sometimes the push to pass. It's how you offset your tyres and use your tyre life. So there's a whole bunch of variables that do come into play. So it's not insignificant, even though we've seen drivers just like Martin Rump last year start the race with 50 kilograms and win and hold everybody out. It doesn't happen all that often. It does have a significant impact. So how it works here in this race, well,
Martin,
we're seeing it play out now, but it'll be interesting over the course of the race. Look at that lead, though.
Martin, I think, seemed to have 4 push-to-passes left, so he's still got plenty of in reserve. We're about halfway through this race now, and this is going to be one of the battles on screen that's worth keeping an eye on as this race progresses. Alex is known very well for defending his position on the track, and Martin has struggled. He got perhaps lucky in qualifying yesterday to get that pole position, but he struggled with, wasn't able to get as much practice time as he would have liked earlier in the weekend, and perhaps that's catching up with him.
Well, certainly it does. The more laps that you can do, the better you're going to be, and more averse with the car. But the team has the opportunity to set up for the conditions because the weather's different on each day. The tyres are different this year too, so they have to come to grips with all of those things. Unfortunately, he had a fire in the rear of this car in opening practice, and it did damage not so much to the car itself, but to the wiring loom. So they had to spend a lot of time unplugging things, putting new loom in the car, and that delayed them in session 2 and had a couple of little niggling issues. There's a number of the teams are watching on, keeping track of their driver. But interestingly too, we're talking about Alex Yoong being a tough driver to combat at events like this. Last year, of course, that very, very famous incident in the battle for the championship between Alex Yoong and Alessio Picariello. And that went down very hard all the way to the wire, the final round in Shanghai. And we saw more contact between the two of them, and the race was declared by the stewards afterwards. So this battle really went on quite well. It started here really in South Korea. And what was interesting is I asked them earlier in the weekend, would they have approached last year any differently? And Alex said, yes, there's a couple of things I'd have done differently about defence. But interestingly, Alessio said no. He said, I'd be just as aggressive if I was involved in that situation this year. So there's not really much more I would have done differently.
It was pretty interesting to watch from an outside perspective. There was definitely a frostiness at certain points between the drivers. They also got on pretty well. You know, they're friends, but also pretty... bitter, perhaps the wrong word, but fierce rivals. Very, very competitive.
We do love a rivalry in the Cup, and that was certainly a fantastic one last year. On screen, Stefan Riquelme, see that light flashing. He is using push to pass. He's going to make another run on KOU. But what does the South Korean driver have for him? Is further forward, the lights flashing for Martin Rump on Alex Young. He's obviously trying to take a leaf out of Sean Thong's book from earlier in the season.
And here goes Riquelme, trying to go around the outside, but not going to do it on this occasion.
That ain't gonna work, and he's down to 0 push to pass now. Again, he's on the outside for the next corner.
Oh!
And KO's showing him, you're not coming through here. Knock, 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 says Stefan on the side of the Audi Korea car, but he's not going to get through that way.
Well,
closes into the corner, protects the line on the exit, and Stefan still has more work to do. And this is the area that incident happened last year with Picarello
like
and Alex Young.
Repeating here.
So you know you're not going to make much of a move there without contact.
But given what we saw yesterday with KO and Frankie Chung, it would be no surprise at all to see these two come together. Just behind them, of course, Anthony Liu in the number 37 car, and then David Chen. Those two have swapped positions from earlier in the race, but still right in the thick of this stream of 4 cars.
Well, that is Anthony Liu on the tail of Stefan Riquelme. We've seen him in GT3 competition here in the past, in hour-long races, part of GT Asia, and he's won 3 races in a couple of seasons, so he knows this circuit very well. We perhaps expected a little bit more out of the Chinese driver, but he'll be happy that he's at least taken the lead of the AM Plus classification, and he'll be looking to try and move forward on the 2 drivers that are battling ahead of him. We saw yesterday, when it does get close, he's still got 3 push to pass. When it does get close, the KO's more than happy to defend with everything that he has. So this could well end either in tears or very nicely for Anthony Liu. But he has been known to push a little bit himself too. So let's just see how this plays out over the remaining laps of this race.
Well, with 7 laps in the books, Alessio Picarello is now 6 seconds ahead at the front. He leads Frankie Chung, then Sean Thong, completing the podium positions. Alessio looking a pretty good bet at the moment to extend that championship lead beyond 35 points. Behind him in the standings, it's very close between positions 2 and 5, 2 and 6, I should say, in the championship standings. But Alessio is running away with it here as we move into the second half of the season.
Well, he's putting a championship together. There's no denying that. He wants to keep winning races. He admitted earlier in the year that I just want to win every race I enter. It was frustrating for him last year. We could see it. He'd built a championship out of ongoing, consistent podium finishes, but getting into the second half of the season, he still hadn't won a race, and it was eating away at him just a little bit. Finally, he took that victory, the sole victory he had last year in Taiwan, and he was very, very happy to have done that, but he felt perhaps a little hard done by the end of the season not to have won the championship. Of course, there are various points of view as to what was right and what was wrong and how that played out, but it was so close. He lost the championship by just 1 point, so he was right in the battle. He did a very, very good job, but this year he wanted to put it completely out of question and win on every occasion he could.
Sean, we've been canvassing opinion amongst all the people in the grid here and amongst Audi and their fellow drivers about just how good Alessio is. Some people saying he's run up there with some people who've driven with drivers who've gone on to DTM and Formula One. Others saying he should be a factory driver. How good is Alessio Picarello?
I don't think anybody can discount just how good the young Belgian driver is. He's very good as an all-round driver. It doesn't matter what he jumps into. He's very, very fast. He's very likeable. He works on his image and his ability with the media, but he works with the team very, very well. Everybody in the team love him, and certainly winning races does make you more attractive, but he is the whole package. Martin Rump is very much the same, similar sort of speed. He just hasn't had the same consistency or luck this year, but the 2 of those drivers are really amongst some of the best in the world.
And it was incredible almost to remember that just a couple of years ago, Alessio was almost languishing, kicking his heels in Europe, and he was sort of waiting for the phone to ring. It did out of the blue ring, and Absolute Racing brought him over into the Formula Masters China Series, and he aced his way through the second half of that season, then is very much taking his chance, having been promoted to the Cup.
Well, certainly his break came thanks very much to Fabian Fiora and Ingo Mader from Absolute Racing. They gave him a call-up because they needed an experienced young open-wheel star at the KL Street Race, which was a demonstration race done a couple of years ago. And from there, they saw something they liked. They gave him a couple of opportunities. People like Jeffrey Lee from the J-Flow Racing operation, they backed the young man to try and get him to go a step further, and he really did a great job as this battle continues with KOU in front of Stefan Rakelmi, Anthony Liu and David Chen in a watching brief back there as the fourth car in this pack. Rakelmi's not going to go around the outside of KO. I think he's worked that out. He just needs to find an opportunity where he can be the inside. You're not going to hold it there. He's getting schooled in a lesson on how to get around Korea International Circuit by the local hero.
I'm going to guess
he's driving a very, very wide car.
I'm going to guess KO's done a couple more laps than Rakelmi around this particular track over the years. But there's certainly no let-up in races. This is the battle for position number 7, cars 7 through 10 on your screen right now. And really, it could go either way.
Well, that second group of cars, so the cars in 3rd and 4th in this line, of course, that's the battle for the AM Plus classification. That is Anthony Liu and fellow Chinese driver David Chen. And that has changed over the course of this race. David Chen had the advantage off the start, but Anthony Liu's used his experience here at Korea International Circuit, a former race winner, to move past into the lead of that category. So this race isn't over yet. There's still laps to go, and KO's doing the world's greatest job of defending as we move further forward in this field. Sean Thong, position number 3, protecting from Mitch Gilbert as Frankie Chung continues to circulate in second behind race leader and teammate.
And there goes Martin Rump with a push to pass, trying to get close enough to Alex Young to get past him. It doesn't look like it's going to work on this particular occasion. At the top of the screen, those two cars, the battle for 5th here.
Frankie looks comfortable in second. He looks like he's going to settle into that position because he's got Alessio well ahead at the front of the field, and he wants a good haul of points. In fact, this may well work to elevate Frankie up the championship order. It's going to be even closer for second, but I think at the moment it looks very much like a fight for second in the championship because Alessio, he's already, well, as you say, 35 points up. This is another 25 points to add to that list for this weekend. Looks like a little bit of contact on the right rear of KOU's car. This is really heating up.
And Anthony Liu coming through. He's going to go past Stefan Rakelmi, but 4 wide almost at one point here. KO, can he hold it? Anthony Liu trying for a double move. KO back into 7th position here. The fans are going to like that, Sean.
Anthony Liu tried to go in deep under brakes and pull across to the line and try and stall the forward movement of KOU, and he was unable to do that because he went in too deep. KOU got the right braking point, turned in, took the position back and closed out the Chinese driver on the exit of the corner. So at least he's tried. He's moved forward a position. So the 37 car now up ahead of Stefan Rakelmi, and that moves him further forward to position number 8.
And he was at the back of this trailer for Anthony Liu a few laps back, so he's moved up past David Chen and now past Rakelmi. Rakelmi, of course, a pro driver. Anthony Liu classified in the AM Plus, so very, very impressive driving from the Chinese driver there.
Yeah, he may have hit a roadblock though. The next one in front's KOU, and whilst Anthony Liu's one of the toughest drivers on the GT3 circuit, he's quite happy to stick his nose down the inside. We know that KOU's quite happy to chop it off too, so this could end in tears. Let's see how it plays out. 3rd position there for Sean Thong, 4th for the Audi Racing entry of Mitch Gilbert. Behind them, the number 1 car, which won yesterday. That, of course, is the reigning champion, and that is Alex Young. Behind him, ranging in under the rear wing of the number 1 Audi R8 LMS Cup entry, that's the champion racing team driver who sat on pole yesterday, Martin Rump.
Well, Martin Rump, still 3 push to passes. He's going to have to use them, otherwise he'll lose them. So I don't know if we didn't see at that time how many Alex Young has, but he does, it's worth remembering, have that extra 50 kilos from yesterday's race win. This is the battle for 3rd and 4th with Sean Thong and then Mitch Gilbert, the number 86 car. And then Alex and Martin coming around at the top of the screen here. Martin, can he do it down this long run into the following turn?
If you want to see just how good Alessio Picarillo is, he's running away at the front of the field, up now by 8 seconds, 2:10.69. We can't use much from the qualifying times. I mean, they were in the 2:09s, but for race pace on worn tyres, Alessio Picarillo really is showing why he is the class of this field at the moment. Nobody else at this stage into the 2:10s, so that is why he is extending his lead at the front of this field. Frankie Chung, a best of 2:11.3 and a 2:11.4 for Sean Thong, 2:11.8 for the man who sat on pole, Mitch Gilbert.
Well, Sean Thong is out of push to passes. Mitch Gilbert will be trying to get back into the podium that he lost from the start of this race. He's driven pretty well, just had a disappointment start off the line with that 35 kilograms perhaps coming into play. But Alessio Picarello, a bit of a procession at the front of the field. Out of this shot, that's Frankie Chung, who just disappeared in second place. Then comes Sean, then comes Mitch in third and fourth on your screen now.
We were talking earlier in the program about being able to overlay data of the Absolute Racing drivers or the team mates. Of course, Phoenix Racing Asia can do the same thing, so too for the other service teams, KCMG, of course, in this championship. And Mitch Gilbert was saying he can overlay his data over Alessio's. He said, in a lot of the cases, we're very, very similar, but he said Alessio's just got something which he wouldn't elaborate on. Obviously, it's the secret. It's the secret ingredient. That he said just allows him to be that little bit quicker on colder tyres and to use this Control Pirelli DH tyre a little bit differently to the rest of us. And he's been able to put that, look at it now. Look, he's got half that long straight from turn 2 to turn 3 ahead of Frankie Chung and a similar distance back to the number 8 entry of Sean Thong, who finished on the podium yesterday. Mitch is really pushing hard, trying to get that place back. And as you say, on the side, you can see it, 35 kilo additional ballast penalty that he is using in this race, and that is slowing him down just a little and allowing Sean Thong to take that advantage. 20 kilos, of course, for Sean Thong as a result of third yesterday. And just behind these two, the battle for fifth, even closer perhaps with Alex Young and his 50 additional kilos in the car, still managing to hold off Martin Rump in sixth position for valuable championship points. And Sean, are we going to see some moves? Are we going to see someone try and move in these final few moments? I don't know. I mean, this is part of a championship. So whilst you might not be happy with a fourth or a fifth or a sixth, it's championship points. And this is all about amassing championship points. I think a lot of the drivers, we heard it from Alex Young last time out of Suzuka, he's written off his championship. He thinks that Alessio is too far ahead now for them to pull that void back. Another 25 points, if the result finishes the way it is now, it's going to make it more difficult, not easier. They thought maybe qualifying further back in round 5 yesterday, they would have an advantage, but Picarello showed even despite that, he is capable of weathering that storm. So maybe this is a battle for second in the championship now, as many of the drivers have said, but it's so close, as you pointed out, 66, 62, 59, 56, 53. Well, that's 13 points between the last, between positions 2 and 6 in this championship, so very, very close. Last lap board out now, so... That's right, so as they fight it out amongst themselves, Alessio just eases to a further lead in this championship. It's been a fantastic drive from the young Belgian, as he said, final lap here at the Korean International Circuit. That's Sean Thong still in third position. He'll be desperate to hold on to that podium position, and Mitch desperate equally to get back into the podium spots. Yeah, good result, good solid result for all these teams. For Mitch, I'm sure he'd be very, very disappointed. He's, as we say, he qualified a couple of times this year, 2/100ths of a second off pole position. And he said it's almost like not even being there. He said, I'd rather have been 10 seconds off the pace. I was so close to having pole position. He said today, yes, I finally nailed it. But unfortunately, off the start, he couldn't get the most of it, unlike his two teammates at the front of the field, Frankie Chung, who got to second. Alessio Picarello, in the opening lap, he's through to the lead and gone. What was it, over a second, 1.8 seconds in the first lap of this race. So good was young Belgian, still with 3 push to pass on the side of the car. So he's not even using that. That's right, it's been a very comfortable victory. We'll get a chance to ask him afterwards how it felt for him, but where does this rank in his season so far in terms of his impressive performances, Sean? Well, this will be victory number 3, the worst finishing result he's had in 6 rounds this year. If he wins this race, only a few corners to go, is 4th yesterday. 2 seconds, 3 wins and a 4th. This is what championships are made of. So just the final few moments before it is official, and another win in the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup season for Alessio Picarello. Through one of the closing stanzas of this lap, this is some of the tricky points of the circuit that a lot of the drivers point, is the last couple of corners. Certainly turns number 15, 16, 17 as the key points to getting some good pace out of your car to set up for this circuit, and they are relatively slow corners. Of course, turn 17, a sweeping right-hander as he comes through, getting close to the final part of this lap now. Through the final right-hander, across the kink to the checkered flag, and this is victory number 3 for Alessio Picarello and the MGT team by Absolute, and what a terrific result for the young Belgian driver. Win number 3. He took only 1 win last year and lost the championship by 1 point. Already he's had 3 wins this year, and we've just gone over the halfway mark. Frankie Chung through in second. Sean Thong again in third position. Unfortunately for pole sitter Mitch Gilbert, that's fourth. Race winner yesterday, Alex Young in position 5. And the pole sitter from yesterday, Martin Rump, across the line in position 6. Let's see what happened in the end result of this battle for 7th. Who's going to come out of the final corner in the lead? This was a classic. KOU's held onto it. He's going to be 7th across the line. He's defended brilliantly, and the local fans are loving this. Anthony Luca do nothing about it. Stefan Riquelme across the line in position number 9, and then 10th across the line for David Chen, and a good result for the Tianche Racing team. Looks like Anthony Liu has brought the car to a stop, maybe to celebrate or maybe to jump out and have a chat to KO about the closing stages of this race, but no denying the winner. Again, 3rd time this season, extends his championship points lead, and that is Alessio Picariello.
And these races just about 30 minutes or so, but these drivers will be absolutely sweltering inside. We see minutes after the race, they still need to look like they've just stepped straight out of the shower, so they'll be happy to come out and celebrate, certainly in terms of Alessio. But a word about Frankie Chung in 2nd position. Fantastic comeback for him after the disappointment that he had yesterday. Contact with KOU, and then, of course, getting slapped with that 30-second penalty.
Yeah, very disappointed in what happened. That was one of those tough judgment calls. He was in the corner. The stewards judged that perhaps he should have backed out of it, that KO had the corner. It bet each way on that one. It may have been a racing incident, it may not. But the end result was he got that penalty and he was back in position.
And mentally, how hard is it to just draw a line under that incident? Some of the younger drivers, perhaps more impulsive, they really stew on these decisions and it affects their driving mental preparations to the next race. Frankie, we saw he was not best pleased yesterday, but he's managed to just turn the page and deliver a performance like this.
Well, that's all a part of it. And Marchie Lee, if you ask him, he's probably listening, and we're sorry you're not here at this event. The driver had started alongside Jeffrey Lee with the most starts in this championship. He's missing this weekend because of duties in Europe. But he would say that drivers are a bit stupid. They forget things very easily. And you need to do that. You need to put yesterday out of your mind and start afresh. We've seen it with, of course, his teammate, the man who won the championship last year, just on screen, Alex Young last year. Some very bad weekends. On a Saturday, complete disaster. You could really throw the baby out with the bathwater. But the next day, he came back fresh and he'd invariably win the race.
The other thing to remember about drivers is that they never think they're in the wrong, which is why we leave it up to the stewards to make the decisions when there are some incidents on the track.
100% correct, and that's why they are here, because they will make a judgment call based on fact and not on fiction, and also not on emotion. And that's a big part of racing. There is plenty of emotion. But how about that drive for KOU to defend that long in this race and keep those drivers behind him? He did a very good job and crosses the line to be classified 7th. Unfortunately for him, no podium this time round, but he really did keep the fans entertained.
Yeah, for a race that didn't see a whole lot of overtakes, it was extremely exciting with some very, very competitive battles all over the track. Alessio aside, of course, it was a pretty comfortable victory, and we'll hear from him in a moment. I'm sure he'll be doing his trademark celebration, and here he comes.
I'm going to see the Usain Bolt. Yeah, there it is. Well, it's becoming the Alessio Picariello now. Usain Bolt will be pulling this one at his next meet. But celebration from the team. Martin Kuhl, the Director of Audi Sport Customer Racing Asia, there celebrating with the race winner and congratulating the podium finishers. Sean Thong there, position number 3, just pouring a bottle of water across the top of his head. So hot are they behind the wheel of those cars. Cabin temperatures of up to 60 degrees. And of course, second to Frankie Chung to add to the victory he took at Suzuka, the last stop for the Audi R8 LMS Cup. The Tianche Racing entry, they are going to take another good podium result here for the AM+.
Well, it was a pretty comfortable victory in the end from Alessio Picariello. We'll get to him in just a moment. What was most impressive, Sean, for you about his performance?
I think just how quickly he got to the lead. He got to the lead and just eked out a very, very big lead and drove away from the field.
Well, we can hear from him now. He's down, as he's just celebrated outside of his car, he is down with Sophie, and we can cross down to them now. Oh, I'm sorry, we just give him a few more moments to take a drink, cool down, and we'll hear from Alessio. He started from third position on the grid, so yes, as he said, he got to the front very, very quickly. Another interesting start with a lot of position changes. We saw the same thing yesterday as well.
One wonders whether or not there was some team discussion beforehand, not to take each other out. But well, let's go down and hear from Alessio Picariello. He's the man who has taken his third win of the year.
Alessio, congratulations for a win here in Korea and a fantastic start. And you dominated the race today. Would you like to talk us through the very beginning?
Yeah, I mean, since the beginning of the weekend, I knew we had pace. Even last year, we were on pole. But every time I missed something, a bit luck, some mistake by myself. So here I really wanted to prove that we were there, and I knew the first lap was the key. Luckily, it was my teammate, so I knew they wouldn't crash me, but I still went for it, and yeah, a win is always important.
Thank you so much, and congratulations, you make it. Enjoy the weekend. Now it's your time, cross over to our panel.
Well, we'll hear from Frankie Chung, the second place driver, in a moment, and as we said before, a great drive from him. It was obviously he wasn't that close to Alessio, but to get back into second spot after what happened to him yesterday, very disappointed, both in qualifying and then in the race. A great drive from the Chinese veteran.
Well, I mean, we go back to season 2016. He didn't make the podium once. Yet in season 2015, he lost the championship to Alex Young by a solitary point. So for him, that would have been very frustrating. This is a confidence builder again. As he said, not 100% comfortable with a new car, but he is going to be down on the grid with Sophie, the second place man and winner in Suzuka, and that is Frankie Chung.
Frankie, did second place make up some disappointment from yesterday and summarize the race weekend here in Korea for us?
Yes, definitely. I mean, yesterday was extremely disappointing, and so today finishing P2, and thanks to the qualifying in front, and didn't have to get involved with some less intelligent driver, and so it was a very clean race for me. And well, I could make the work a little bit harder for Alessio, but he was too quick for me, and also. We have to look at the data because the first 3 laps, it seems I lost a lot of speed compared to him. And yeah, so overall, it's okay weekend, and could have been better, but it was all down to luck. And next round in Shanghai, and first, let's enjoy now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frankie. Enjoy the weekend. Back to your guys.
Thanks, Sophie. Well, we spoke to Frankie earlier, and you mentioned the difference in performance that we've seen the last few seasons for Frankie. What is it about confidence that just suddenly goes and then comes back? It seems that it takes a lot longer to regain confidence, but pretty quick to lose it sometimes.
Well, I mean, anything new. We're just talking about the Generation 1 Audi versus the Generation 2 Audi. They were significantly different cars. And when you don't have that confidence to push the car to the limit, and let's face it, these guys have to do that a lot, then you're going to be a little cautious. That little bit of caution drops you back into the pack, you get involved in incidents, you're not winning races anymore, then you start to doubt whether or not you can actually do it anymore. But he's taken that victory at Suzuka, and that's helped rebuild. This second was great. But Sean Thong now, third position, twice this weekend. He is down there, the Audi Tita racing driver with Sophie.
Sean Thong, 2-time third place finish this weekend, but this time you with 20 kg in your car, is this the best result so far?
Yeah, I can say that because every time when I carry rates, the car feels different. So I'm actually amazed how my rivals handle so well with the extra ballast weight. And I think that's 1 point for me and my team to work on. But I mean, to finish 2 times on the podium this weekend, it's amazing. And I think I really get lots of good points this weekend.
Thank you so much, Sean Thong, and back to the panel.
Well, Sean, your namesake, spelled differently, I should add, finishing in third position. He started from 4th position. He's got a younger brother, Jasper, as well, who's also on the racing scene and has made an appearance in the Cup, but is not a full-time driver at the moment. What's most impressed you about the young Hong Kong driver, just in his career so far?
I'm glad your spelling's better than your arithmetic, but Sean's been very impressive, and a number of people already signalling that he could be the next big thing in Asia, following in the footsteps, of course, of his mentor, Marchie Lee, and a lot of advice too from Alex Young. They're both over 40 now. They hate us bringing that up. I'm sorry I've done it again, but they're not in the early stages of their career. Sean's 21. He's got a long way to go. His younger brother, Jasper's 17. Jasper, interestingly, took the Audi RS3 LMS TCR to its first worldwide win in Asia, and that was an impressive moment. So these 2 young drivers have a big career ahead of them.
I'd like to see them race on the track a little bit more, because Jasper's quite a confident young lad. He seems to think he's quicker than his older brother. Sean doesn't think so, though.
Well, you got Casey Thong, their father. That's where this motor racing bug came from. They're threatening that all three of them will be on the grid at some point, but very soon we will be back for the podium for the 6th round of the Audi R8 LMS Cup. We've gone into the start of the second half of this season. Seen 12 rounds a season in the past. This year is 10 rounds. And from here we are off to China, where we will be in Shanghai a little bit later in the year, early September, September 9 and 10. And then we're off to Zhejiang, the new circuit being built in China for later in the year. That's October 20 and 21 to close out the 2017 season. So this is round 6 of 10, and already half those rounds have been won by a young Belgian driver, Alessio Picariello.
Well, it's great to see the Cup finding some new tracks across Asia, as well as going to some of the more famous ones. So just to recap the finishing positions, we had Alessio in position number 1. He started from 3rd. Frankie started 2nd, finished 2nd. Sean went up 1 place from 4th to finish and the final podium position. And Mitch Gilbert, well, disappointment from him at the start. He drove well, but he finished down in 4th after starting in pole position.
Well, he's one that wears his heart on his sleeve too, so I'm not sure he'd be too impressed with the overall result. Starting from pole, the first time this year, he had strong hopes that he'd be on top of the podium. So it'll be very, very interesting. And we'll see how he responds to this weekend. Of course, you can keep up with all the action on the www.audi-r8lmscup.com website and through the various social media channels around, both in Chinese and, of course, in English. So you want to find more out about what has happened with those drivers this weekend, then you can keep up to date that way. So it'll be interesting to see what Mitch Gilbert has to say, but he was hoping that he'd be able to convert his pole into a win. Certainly he's had a number of podium positions. He's been on the podium the last 4 races, and that has moved him up in this championship. So we'll see how he goes. I mean, again, could this be a confidence kick for him that he hasn't been able to go that next step? But again, we saw that last year with Alessio Picariello, and he eventually worked his way through to a victory by the time we got to Taiwan and fell short of the championship by just 1 point. So it's not over, not by a long shot.
Well, we can go down to the podium in just a few moments' time to see the ceremony. Well, in fact, we can go down there now to see the victory ceremony between the winning drivers from today's race.
Ladies and gentlemen, the awarding ceremony of 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup, round 6 and category overall is now officially inaugurated. The 3rd place of category overall goes to Tong Wei Fong from Team Audi Teta Racing Team. The 2nd place of category overall goes to Kong Fu Cheng from Team FAW-VW Audi Racing Team. And the winner of category overall goes to Alessio Picariello from Team MGT by Absolute. Now, awarding the prizes to the winners of category overall. May I please invite Mr. Andy Han, head of PR and event of Audi Korea, to present the prize to the 1st place winner. Now may I invite Mr. Li Xiaopeng, Director of Space Group, to present the prize to the 2nd place winner. And may I invite Hong Yong-tae, Manager of Federal Mobile Motorsports, to present the prize to the 3rd place winner. And Pirelli Fast Lap winner is Alessio Picariello from Team MGT by Absolute. And awarding the prize to the place of Pirelli Fast Lap, may I invite Ms. Rebecca Lee, Motorsport Marketing Manager of Pirelli Asia Pacific. Congratulations to all the winners, and let's take a photo only with the drivers. Photo, not yet champagne please, not yet. Photos please. with 9-year champion. Oh my God.
Good result, and celebrating very happily is Alessio Picariello. And why not? 3 wins from 6 starts this season and an extension in his championship points lead. It's making things very, very difficult for his rivals as we go into the final 2 events of the year back in China.
Well, stay tuned, everyone at home, because we will be talking with 3-time and reigning champion Alex Young in just a moment here after the AM Plus podium. But the top 3 then, following those 3 in the standings, we had Mitch Gilbert and Alex Young, who will be coming in, and then Martin Rum. It's a bit of a disappointing weekend, I think, for Martin.
Certainly, considering he had a very good pole, very strategically well-placed pole in the opening race here yesterday. Unfortunately, a bit like Mitch Gilbert, was unable to convert that into a win. So he will be a little bit disappointed too in the overall performance of the weekend. But we did also speak about the fact that they were a little behind the 8 ball after failing to get too much practice in with issues in practice. So that was one of those things that probably contributed overall to a lack of outright speed in the end for the champion racing team.
Well, moving into the AM Plus category, saw a very competitive battle all across the weekend between David Chen and another Chinese driver, Anthony Liu. It seemed that David was going to get the edge again today, but Anthony in that pack of 4 between positions 7 through 10. Dramatic racing there, and he managed to get the edge by the end.
Well, Anthony doesn't like to be cornered. We've seen that a lot in the past, certainly in his time with GT Asia, and a very fast driver too. So he would prefer to be battling more with the outright drivers. So that's just one of those things that he'll be looking to try and impress upon as we get further into this season. But a good battle. It's nice to see a good close battle there. So we look like we'll be back across to the podium very, very shortly to see those drivers receive their trophies for round 6 of the 2017 season, which has been a cracker so far, and promises a very good end, of course, when we go to China, and certainly off to Shanghai in September.
Well, just a word about David Chen. He's a very young driver coming with the Tianxia Racing Team, a Chinese outfit new to the Cup this year. What have you been your thoughts on that outfit this year?
Oh, very impressed. We see him just on the second place on the podium. He's been a good student of the sport so far and has been able to learn with each race and improve pace-wise.
And the winner of the category amateur goes to Buret Braun Bacati from Team Singhawk Laramie Motorsport. Now awarding the prizes to winners in category amateur plus and amateur. May I invite Mr. Martin Kuhn, Director of Audi Sport Customer Racing Asia, to present the prize to first place in amateur plus category. Now may I invite Junhun Chen, Manager of OEM and KEI Account Sales Castrol, to present the prize to second place in amateur plus category. Lastly, may I invite Mr. Ken Kokita, Pirelli Motorsport Japan, to present the prize to winner in amateur category. Let's take a quick photo time with the drivers. This time with all the presenters on the podium, please.
Well, we're very happy to have Alex Young with us here at the panel. Alex, given that you had 50 kilos in the car, started from 6th position, how do you feel about 5th result?
Yeah, I know qualifying didn't go so well, so it's just about maximizing the results in the race, and I was pretty happy. I think I drove very well. We got the tire pressures just perfect, and the car was good from start to end, you know. I mean, 50 kilos is going to cost you some lap time, and it's just about being able to bang in the lap times, and I was able to do that, so I have to say I'm pretty content.
What's been different for you this weekend? The performance really has come on strongly, and to back that up, of course, Sean's made 3rd twice, so the Phoenix Racing Asia team really has stepped things up a bit this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've definitely made progress since the last race. You know, absolutely hit the ground running from the first race. You know, they understand the tyre a lot better. They run these tyres in America. For everyone in the team in Phoenix Racing Asia, it's new to us, so we're learning as we're going. But we made a big step forward this weekend. You can see how much more competitive we are. We're faster than Martin in the KCMG car, so they've definitely made a big jump. Just need to work in qualifying a bit more, and I think we'll be able to be even more competitive.
Just talk a little bit more about that. You have obviously individual rivalries with the drivers, with teammates as well, but as a team, are you guys looking at absolutely thinking collectively we need to up our game to beat those guys? Is it more about individual performance?
No, I mean, Sean and I are working very well together. You know, beginning of the year, I think Sean was a little bit far away, but he's, you know, we're doing the same lap times now, so we can look at the data and compare. And we work together pretty well, trying to get more out of the car. So working together is definitely helping us get faster.
You've strung together 3 championships on the trot. You've got a young man at the moment that you battled very hard with, beat by just 1 point last year, and he's really making a good job of this championship. Yeah. But is it game over for the rest of the people? You said that after Suzuka. Do you still stand by that?
Yeah, you know, I said after Suzuka that was game over because Alessio was driving so well, and I feel it's even more game over because I think it seems like Absolute are just pushing that one driver to win. You know, I was very surprised how Mitch and Frankie kind of let Alessio through so easily. So, you know, they're fighting for the championship. I thought they would have made it much harder for Alessio to get the win. So when you got the Absolute cars working together, it makes it very hard.
Well, we talked on the commentary about the data and comparing, and you mentioned you're working well with Sean. Do you see, how much of your role do you see as a sort of a mentor to him to push him, as you know, not going to retire anytime soon? Yeah, I know you don't like the term veteran, but you know, he is that next generation.
It is hard because I do want to beat him, but the more I help him, the faster he gets.
And that helps you too.
Yeah, but actually this weekend was the first time I was actually holding back a bit of information for the first time. So I think it kind of suggests that I am getting worried about his pace now.
So the rivalries are alive, well and truly, in the team and certainly amongst the championship. So Shanghai's a different thing, though. How much is experience going to play for you there? I know we talk about experience doesn't mean that much anymore, but I think you showed yesterday in slippery conditions, you were able to leverage that a little.
Yeah, I guess if we have unusual conditions, there's a chance I've probably encountered them some point in my career, so that will help me. But, you know, everyone knows Shanghai so well. Every one of us have raced at Shanghai countless times. So I actually think we're going to see the closest qualifying field in Shanghai. I can see it being very, very, very close.
Well, thank you very much, Alex. Congratulations on yesterday's result, and thanks for talking with us today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, fantastic, isn't it? I mean, we've got a great battle going on, really, in this championship. Unfortunately, as Alex says quite rightly, Alessio's got that jump. Now it's going to be very difficult to haul it back. If we started the season, I think Alex would admit too, started the season with what everybody knows now with the cars, it'd be a very, very different picture.
Alex, we'll let you go and take a drink and cool off, but thank you very much.
Thank you. It's great to hear from the 3-time champion and the most successful driver in the Audi R8 LMS Cup over the last 6 seasons, and continues winning. He took his 2nd win yesterday. Alessio now up to 3 wins. It's making it very difficult for anybody else to get any of the spotlight.
Well, here are the cars just being wheeled back into the garage, and you know, it's worth mentioning the performance. We touched on it just before Alex came in about young David Chen, just about 21 years of age, coming in, and what's impressed you about some of the other races that he's been involved in?
Well, he's done some work in the TCR Asia series and jumped in and been very, very quick there. Admittedly, it was at the Zhuhai circuit where he has the home base at TSRT, so he knows that very well. Raced in China GT quite successfully with another driver with a lot of good experience, an Italian driver, Max Visa. So he has learnt a lot, but what impresses me the most is he's not getting involved in lots of heavy accidents. He's not doing anything really silly. He's just slowly creeping forward. And each event, he seems to get further up the field. As he said yesterday, he started from pole position. He got swamped off the start. Did he say that was a negative and that he'd done anything wrong? No, what he said was, I've learnt from the other drivers to see what they do. And this is what's about. He's absorbing all this information and he's applying it very, very well.
It was certainly a very mature reaction from a driver so young. Sometimes we see some more impulsive, even some of the more senior drivers such as Alex and Marchi, we've seen earlier in their careers, much older than David Chen were. They were pretty impulsive still.
Go back to South Korea 2016. I mean, there's a little bit of impulsive driving then. That was just one of those things, but it certainly is making it a very interesting championship, and to see these young guys coming through, certainly the Chinese drivers developing. Sean Thong's just walked past us on his way to the press conference, 3rd twice this weekend. Another young driver coming through, and that's great for the region.
Well, talking about the championship, Alessio Petrolio is quite a long way out in front, but by my calculation, Sean, I know you've been giving me a little bit of a tough time on the calculator recently, but I think Mitch Gilbert second by just 1 point ahead of Frankie Chung, so it is going to be very competitive throughout that standings. Alessio aside, though, he is, let's be honest, he is running away with it at this point.
Well, he is, and you just heard what Alex Jung had to say about that. And it's interesting that now the battle really is probably for second position. Nothing's completed now. There still is a bit of a way to go in this championship, but Alessio's proven that he's not going to be held back by starting further back in the field. He's not going to be admonished by his rivals, or they're not going to bully him into anything. I mean, he's really been the complete driver this year, and that's how you win a championship. And maybe Absolute are working towards getting that driver to the top of the pile again, but that's what teamwork's about. Maybe the other drivers have accepted that that's what our role is. Certainly it worked for the likes of Michael Schumacher and Ayrton Senna over many, many years. Alessio's not quite there yet, but he's certainly laying the foundations to build a very, very strong career in motorsport.
And Alessio just walked past us in the lounge. He looked pretty comfortable, not quite as warm as some of the other drivers, but it was, I guess, from his standards, a relatively simple victory, I think.
Well, it looks simple. I was going to say that, but you look at Frankie. Frankie looked very exhausted. I mean, he's still a fit man. He's not an old man by any stretch of the equation. He's been racing this series quite a long time, but he looked like he'd really worked very hard for that second place finish. And again, being young and fit does help. And these conditions are very, very hot, very exhausting for the drivers. So, yes, he did, I must admit, Alessio did look very cool as he walked back through here.
It's easy, perhaps, when you do have such a lead to be humble, but you know, we've been trying to tempt him into say, yeah, I think this year is my year. But he just, you know, when we ask him, can you win it this year, his response pretty much, well, I'm just taking it, I'm working hard, I'm getting quicker. So that's why people should watch out, not because I already have a lead, but because of the work still to come, which again is a pretty mature response from him.
Well, he said during the off-season he worked very, very hard to be mentally prepared as well as physically prepared. Not so much time in the car. A lot of his rivals spent more time in the car. But in the end, he's been the star performer this year. So sometimes it's nice to have time away from something to just process the thinking. And in his case, and what the team have been working on, is making the car work on those new Pirelli tyres this year, and that has had a big impact.
Now, word about one of his teammates, Mitch Gilbert, who disappointment today, having started from pole position, but he's been very, very consistent and now is second in the championship.
Well, he's still amassing points, but I'm sure he'll be very disappointed he hasn't been able to convert that pole position to victory this time around. So well, we'll see. There's still 4 races in this championship to go. It means there's another 100 points left in the championship. I mean, what's your math like? 126, the points leader, and his lead is quite significant. I mean, it's out to 48 points or thereabouts. Yeah, that's 2 complete race wins just to get to the point where Alessio is. So Alessio has to not finish or score any points in 2 races. And that's going to be very, very unlikely, I think, at this point.
That's right. Technically, I guess, mathematically speaking, the championship is now out of the other drivers' hands. Even if they were to win all the races, if Alessio was finished second, he would still win the championship. So it is a significant lead. 6 races in the books with another 4 to go. We mentioned before Shanghai and Zhejiang in eastern China. That'll be a new track for that one. Sean, have you ever visited that track before?
No, a lot of nice elevation changes. There's a bit of a tunnel, very much like, well, not quite Monaco, but certainly like some of the circuits in the world that we've come to realise are iconic because they're different. And I think Zhejiang could very quickly become one of those in China that is very popular with the teams. And there have been a few events held there already, and certainly the teams that have competed have suggested it's a very, very nice layout. Still a bit of work to finish some of the outbuildings and some of that sort of thing, but we're pretty certain by the time we get there later in the season that it will be ready to go. And it's one that the teams are looking forward to close out the 2017 season.
And we are getting to the end of our show here in Korea. Just a word about KOU, the local star here, and Andrew Kim. What's impressed you about his performance?
Well, he's still a tough competitor. He still loves his motorsport. I mean, he rises to the occasion each time we come to South Korea. Unfortunately for him, he didn't make the podium on this occasion, but he put on a great show for the fans and certainly the people here in the lounge. So that was a nice result for KOU, and I'm sure he'll have a broad smile here today that he was able to hold out some drivers over the closing laps of this race. So very, very good run, I think, for KOU.
And Andrew Kim is obviously another Korean driver just coming in to replace Marchi Lee, who has other Audi commitments in Europe for this particular race weekend. But Andrew's also been a good driver over the years.
He certainly has, and we're across to the panel to talk to the drivers in the press conference.